kindness, rise and shine. Buko ng pag-asa sa bawat hakbang. Hawak kita sa aking kamay.
Hi guys! Welcome back to our channel. Last video na introduce na natin ang 4 example of transactions na kailangan ding masama sa ating accounting period, and we will explore them in this video. To simplify things in our learning and exercises, let's make our accounting period quarterly. We need to know kung kumita ba tayo at gaano kalaki ang kinita natin after 1 quarter. In our journaling exercises, we had a month's worth of transactions. We will have 2 more months of transactions that includes adjusting entries for deferrals, accruals, and estimates. As mentioned in the last video, we would need to apply the necessary adjusting entries to reflect the true income or loss of a business in an accounting period. Simulan natin sa deferrals. Ang root word ng deferrals ay defer, which simply means to delay or to postpone. Kapag may deferred expense or deferred revenue, ibig sabihin, pinopostpone mo muna ang pag-recognize ng expense or revenue hanggang sa tamang panahon. Deferred expense ang gaya ng prepayment. Let's say nagbayad ka ng rent in advance for 6 months. Hindi mo siya i-expense agad. Kagaya ng sinabi natin sa day 2 ng ating video series, kung may pakinabang pa sa future, ito ay hindi expense kundi isang asset. Papaano mo ito i-journal? Sa journal, you are parting away with cash kaya nasa credit side siya. And you are going to debit an account called prepaid rent. As we have mentioned, prepaid rent is an asset and not an expense. Over time, you recognize part of that rent as an actual expense, but we will talk about that in the next video. Let's go to deferred revenue. Deferred revenue ang kagaya ng advance payments from customers. This is better known as unearned revenue. Halimbawa, customer paid you 30,000 pesos for services na gagawin mo pa lang. Hindi mo agad i-recognize yan as revenue dahil hindi mo pa ito ikinita. Strictly speaking, it is not revenue but a liability. Papaano mo ito i-journal? Sa journal, you are receiving cash kaya nasa debit or left side siya, and you are going to credit the account unearned revenue. Over time, you will recognize the revenue as soon as you deliver to your customer, as you earn the revenue. We will talk about that in the next video. Now, you have seen deferred expense, which is not an expense but an asset. And you've seen deferred revenue, which is not a revenue but a liability. Now, listen closely. You've seen this in the last video that in accrual accounting, important ang concepts of earned revenue and incurred expense for that accounting period. Is this statement still true? The deferrals we saw are not earned revenue and not incurred expense, that's true. But we need to record transactions as soon as they occur. But we are careful not to categorize them as expense and revenue. Kasi if we do, we won't reflect the true income for that period, which is shown in the income statement. As we have mentioned, they are asset and liability respectively. They will not be reflected in the income statement, which is just for that one accounting period, but in the balance sheet. Because the balance sheet is the financial position of a business. It shows the breakdown of the accounting equation assets equals liabilities plus equity. This is the current position of each account in assets, liabilities, and equity. It includes cumulative amounts from the start of your business up to today. Ang word na cumulative is related to the word accumulate, which means to gather over time. Kaya in accounting, kapag sinabing cumulative, iniipon lahat ng transaksyon, hindi binubura, hindi nire-reset bawat taon, kundi dinadagdag lang ng dinadagdag habang tumatagal ang business. So every transaction affecting your assets gaya ng cash receivables, and transactions affecting liabilities gaya ng payables, loans, and transactions affecting equity, for example, capital, lahat yan gets carried over and reflected in the balance sheet. More on the balance sheet later. Now that you understand deferrals, let's move on to accruals. Ang root word ay accrue, which means to build up over time. Kaya when we said accrued expenses or accrued revenues, we're talking about expense na naipon na pero hindi pa nababayaran, o kaya revenue na kinita na ngunit hindi pa nababayaran. As an example, for accrued expense, let's say may utility expense ka na for June, pero na-late ang bill mo. Gamit mo na ang kuryente pero wala pa ang bill. You still need to record it in June kasi doon mo siya nagamit. Paano mo ito gagawin? Kadalasan ito ay i-estimate mo. Maaari mong gawing basihan ang month of last year if you think that's closer to the amount that you're expecting. And this is usually done at the end of that particular month. Paano mo ito i-journal? If you already know your bill and you're paying for it, ang ginawa natin dito before is that you are parting away with cash, so you will credit cash and you will debit the expense utility. But since you're not parting away with cash, you have to use another account on the credit side. For this account, you can use what we call an accrued expense utility. This account is a liability. So in this journal entry, you have an expense on the left side and a liability on the right side. Since an expense has been incurred, it will reflect correctly on the accounting period's expense, even though it's just an estimate, but a very good estimate at that. And even though it has not yet been paid since hinihintay pa ang bill, the counterpart credit on the right side is categorized as a liability that will reflect on the balance sheet. When you receive the bill, of course, you will have to pay for it, but you have to reverse this accrued expense entry, and we will show that in the next video. Nakita na natin ang kagaya ng accrued revenue for any unpaid service. Halimbawa, we delivered service to a customer on credit worth 10,000 pesos. We debit accounts receivable ng 10,000 pesos and we credit service revenue ng 10,000 pesos. Here, service revenue is already recognized as revenue and it will reflect in the income statement. So ayan, deferrals delay revenue or expense recognition, part sila ng balance sheet, while accruals record revenue or expenses that have happened pero hindi pa nababayaran or collected, para updated naman ang income statement. Both are part of adjusting entries and they make your financials compliant with accrual accounting. So, handa ka na ba for our next set of transactions for month 2? Let's go! Congratulations! Sa susunod na video natin, i-reveal ang mga kasagutan for the month 2 of our transactions. Muli, this is Oh My Pinas. See you next time!